Don't you dare touch me." The millionaire's wife's voice cut through the hospital room, sharp and venomous. The nurse, young, black, exhausted after a 12-hour shift, froze, her gloved hands inches from the patient. The room went silent. Other nurses shifted uncomfortably, but no one moved. The woman's husband cleared his throat, muttering, "Just get someone else." Not her. In that moment, the nurse's heart sank, but she had no idea the hospital director was watching. And what happened next? Nobody in that hospital would ever forget. For Jasmine Carter, nursing wasn't just a career, it was her calling. At 29, she had already earned a reputation for being the one who stayed late, the one who held a patient's hand when no one else would. "You always find a way to smile even when you're tired," her colleagues often told her. On this particular morning, she had dragged herself into St. Mary's Hospital after a grueling night shift. Her scrubs were wrinkled, her eyes heavy, but her heart was steady. Helping people, that's what mattered. "Room 307 needs you, Jasmine," a fellow nurse said, handing her a chart. Nothing unusual. Another patient. Another family in need. Jasmine tucked a stray curl behind her ear and whispered to herself, "All right, let's get them comfortable." But the moment she stepped into the room, she noticed something different. The air felt colder. The patient, an elderly man hooked to an IV, shifted uneasily. Beside him sat a woman dressed in pearls, her designer handbag perched carefully on the chair. She glanced at Jasmine, then narrowed her eyes. Jasmine smiled politely. "Good morning. I'm your nurse today. How are we feeling?" The woman didn't answer. She only stared. Her lips pursed tighter, as if every second Jasmine stood there was an offense. "Still," Jasmine carried on, adjusting the patient's blanket, checking the monitors. Years of training had taught her to push through awkward silences. But this wasn't silence, this was something else, something heavier. What Jasmine didn't realize was that this encounter would soon spiral into a confrontation that would leave the entire hospital stunned and expose a truth too many try to ignore. Jasmine kept her focus on the patient, checking the monitors and adjusting his oxygen line. But every movement felt like it was being dissected by the woman in pearls. Finally, the silence broke. "Excuse me," the woman said sharply. "I'd like another nurse, someone else." Jasmine looked up, caught off guard. "Ma'am, I assure you, I'm fully qualified to take care of your husband." The woman's eyes narrowed. "That's not the issue. I simply don't want you." Her voice lingered on that last word, dripping with unspoken meaning. For a moment, Jasmine thought she misheard. But the woman leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, waiting. The patient, frail and tired, shifted uncomfortably. "Margaret," he whispered, "please let her—" "No," Margaret snapped. "Get someone else. Not her." The words hit Jasmine like a slap. She had endured subtle stares before, the hesitant pauses when she walked into certain rooms, but never something this blatant, this cruel. Her hands trembled slightly, though she kept her voice calm. "Ma'am, I'm here to help your husband. Refusing care isn't safe for him." Margaret's tone grew colder. "Then fetch a white nurse. That shouldn't be so hard in this hospital." The room went still. Jasmine could hear the faint beeping of the monitor, the patient's shallow breaths, and her own heart pounding in her chest. She wanted to disappear, but she couldn't. Walking out would mean abandoning her patient. Staying meant enduring humiliation. At that moment, another nurse peeked through the door. She froze, her eyes darting between Jasmine and Margaret. Then she whispered, "Jazz, do you want me to take this one?" Jasmine's pride ached. Part of her wanted to hand the chart over, to escape this icy hatred. But another part of her, the part that had worked years through late nights, exams, and endless shifts to earn her badge, refused. "No," Jasmine said firmly, though her voice cracked just a little. "I've got it," Margaret scoffed, rolling her eyes. "Unbelievable. I'll be speaking to your supervisor about this." Her threat hung in the air like a storm cloud. Jasmine finished her work in silence, her movements precise but heavy with humiliation. Every second in that room felt like an hour. By the time she stepped out into the hallway, her chest was tight. She leaned against the wall, trying to steady herself. A fellow nurse touched her arm gently. "Jazz, you okay?" She forced a smile. "Yeah, just another day." But inside she wasn't okay, because she knew Margaret's words weren't going to stay in that room. A woman like her, a millionaire with connections, could make complaints that carried weight. And Jasmine, a young black nurse, had no shield but her own truth. Sure enough, by the end of the shift, Jasmine was called into the director's office. She walked the long hallway with dread curling in her stomach. Had Margaret already made her complaint? Would her career be on the line because of something she couldn't change, because of the color of her skin? When she opened the door, the hospital director was waiting, expression unreadable. "Jasmine," he said slowly, folding his hands on the desk. "We need to talk about what happened in room 307. Her heart sank. This was it. But what came next? It would shock everyone. Jasmine sat across from the hospital director, her palms damp against her scrubs. The office was silent except for the ticking of the wall clock. She braced herself for the worst. The director leaned forward. "Mrs. Whitmore came to me personally. She claims you were unprofessional." Jasmine's chest tightened. "Unprofessional? Sir, I only tried to do my job." Before he could respond, the door burst open. Margaret Whitmore herself stormed in, pearls rattling as she threw her designer handbag onto the chair. "Yes, this one," she barked, pointing at Jasmine like she was a stain. "I told you I will not have some—" She stopped short, her voice dripping venom. "Colored nurse touching my husband." The word hung in the air like poison. Jasmine froze. The director's eyes widened, but Margaret didn't stop. "My husband deserves dignity. We donate millions to this hospital, and I expect to be listened to. Either she's gone, or my money is." Jasmine felt her stomach drop. This was it. The moment her entire career could collapse, not because of incompetence, not because of negligence, but because of the color of her skin. She opened her mouth, her voice trembling. "Mrs. Whitmore, with respect, I treated your husband with the same care I give to every patient. Don't talk back to me." Margaret snapped, slamming her hand on the desk. "You people never know your place." The room went dead silent. Jasmine's heart pounded in her ears, her throat tightening. She wanted to cry, scream, walk out, but her legs wouldn't move. She turned to the director, her eyes pleading. Would he stand with her, or would power and money win like always? The director exhaled slowly, his gaze shifting between them. Then in a voice sharper than glass, he said, "Enough!" The word cut the air, leaving both women stunned. And what he said next would not only decide Jasmine's future, but the reputation of the entire hospital. The director's voice filled the room. "Mrs. Whitmore, I don't care how much money you donate. In this hospital, every nurse, every doctor, every human being is treated with respect. And if you cannot accept care from one of our most skilled nurses simply because of the color of her skin, then you may take your husband elsewhere." For the first time, Margaret was speechless. Her lips quivered, her face flushed red. She grabbed her handbag, muttering under her breath, but the director didn't flinch. Jasmine sat frozen, her breath caught in her chest. She hadn't expected anyone to stand up for her, not against someone with that much money and power. The director turned to Jasmine, his voice softening. "You did nothing wrong. You did your job, and you did it well. Don't ever let anyone make you feel less than what you are." Those words struck deeper than Margaret's cruelty ever could. For Jasmine, it wasn't just about keeping her job. It was about finally feeling seen, valued, defended. But as she walked out of that office, the weight of the incident lingered. Because she knew Margaret wasn't unique. She was just one face of a larger truth, that racism doesn't vanish at the hospital doors, the boardroom, or the classroom. It hides in plain sight until moments like this drag it into the open. Jasmine kept working, but with a new fire. Every patient she touched, every shift she endured, became more than just a duty. It became resistance, proof that no amount of prejudice could erase her worth. And for everyone watching, the question remains: how many Jasmines are out there right now, silently enduring what should never be endured? The answer: too many. The real question is, when will we finally refuse to stay silent? If this story touched you, hit like, drop a comment, and don't forget to subscribe, because voices like Jasmine's deserve to be heard.